So November 2019, question number 5, and I would want us to start with part B. It's all about mergers and acquisitions. So when we talk of mergers and acquisitions, a high level overview, what do we mean with these mergers and acquisitions, as you saw that in that video? Mergers and acquisitions. Mergers and acquisitions, ladies and gentlemen. When we talk of a merger, we will have two organizations that will come together. They join. They come together, A and B. If A and B merges, if they merge together, ladies and gentlemen, they're going to become one thing. They're going to become one thing. So you talk of a merger, it is the coming together of two or more organizations to form a new company, So A and B will come together, we add them, and then we shall have, ladies and gentlemen, in this case here, a new company called who? A new company called C. So what do we mean with this? We mean, ladies and gentlemen, that if it's a merger, A will lose its identity and B will as well lose its identity. They must go to the registrar of companies, ladies and gentlemen, to strike them off the register of companies, right? So if it's, for example, CBA coming together with another bank, so CBA must be removed from the register of companies. This other bank must also be struck off from the register of the companies, right? They're coming together, they're losing their identities, in this case here to give us a new company called who? Called C. Thank you very much. How about acquisition? How about acquisition? Ladies and gentlemen, if A acquires B, it is B that will lose its identity, leaving us with company who? Leaving us with company A. So company A will become so big with the time because it's acquiring, it's eating up the small companies. Look at, for example, what is happening with Brookside. Brookside. Do you guys know the case of Brookside? Is there anybody who knows which type of companies at Brookside? Is there somebody who knows some examples of companies that Brookside has been swallowing? Brookside has been swallowing with the time. Is there anybody who can remind us the names of those companies that Brookside has been swallowing, has been acquiring? So Brookside acquires a smaller company. The smaller company loses identity. The smaller company disappears. Brookside, in this case here, becomes bigger and bigger. Right now, it's really a company to reckon with in East Africa. In East Africa, whenever any person talks of milk, in this case here, Brookside has to come somewhere in that discussion. So you're right. So Tuzo, Molo, etc., all of them have been swallowed, but we have Brookside. In this case here, name of Brookside becoming bigger and bigger like that. So that's an acquisition really. That's an acquisition really. And I normally give very good examples. When you have, in this case here, for example, for those of you who know these animals, cat and rat, when these two animals meet, one of them must disappear. One of them must disappear. When they come into contact, one of these animals here must disappear. Which animal will disappear? You'll get somebody who doesn't know these two types of animals. You'll get somebody saying cat will disappear. Which kind of a rat is able to eat or chase, right? Bila nasema, the rat will be eaten up. So then, ladies and gentlemen, could you kindly tell me here, this cat-rat relationship, will it be an acquisition or a merger? Will this be an acquisition or a merger? So they're saying it's an acquisition for sure because rat is being acquired. Rat is being acquired by the cat. When I try to resolve this equation, I'll have cat plus rat being equal to cat because rat will disappear somewhere into thin air. So this becomes what here? An acquisition. How about this? I gave you this very good example. On that video. We have wife versus husband. Wife versus husband. Wife versus husband in an African setup. Will this be an acquisition, an African setup, or a merger? Will it be an acquisition or a merger? Most of them are really making an argument here. They are saying, Mwalimu, this has to be a merger simply because of what here? Simply because we are trying to look at ourselves as if we are equals, right? Like the man will leave his home, their family. The wife will also leave their family, and then we come at the middle and they get to meet, right? You guys are cheating yourselves. In Africa, ladies and gentlemen, in Africa, this automatically becomes who? Becomes an acquisition in Africa. In Africa. Because at the end of the day, everything will be revolving around who? Husbandee. Everything will be revolving around who? Husbandee. Husbandee. For example, the wife will be told in this case here to do, and I've seen always women doing this worst mistake. You'll get one of them dropping their father's name. They take the husband's name. No, if you're wise, you retain your 3 names, and then you have what? The husband name attached. It's a 4th one because of the certificates. Even if you change a few things here and there, you need the certificate here to be seen that the names are the same. So the husband, you'll be having the husband's name. If, for example, today you are to get, ladies and gentlemen, if, for example, today, if you're to get yourselves, you're a couple, you're working together at RCM Online College in town, and then this couple, they finish their work at 5 p.m., they walk together home. Of course, they drive home slowly, they reach home nicely. What will happen to that poor husband? The poor husband, in quotes, will get himself on a comfy chair, remove socks like that, relax a little bit, and then he'll throw his legs on a comfy, soft poof. This poor lady will run around doing everything to ensure that really all strings are moving in the house. Children are doing homework, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, do you want to tell me that that is what we call a merger of equals? Is that a merger of equals? Is that a merger of equals? Because, you know, when we talk of, ladies and gentlemen, merger, the 2 companies that are coming together, they have got to be quite like of the same size. They disappear, both of them. They lose, in this case here, their strength, both of them, to form something new. This person saying men also help with the kids. You must be having a special husband. That is a husband in this case here who needs, ladies and gentlemen, what here? Special attention as well. The kind of husbands that we have, we see around here, ladies and gentlemen, are not very nice. I happen to have traveled quite a lot. Especially in Europe. When you are out there, ladies and gentlemen, and you happen to be having, for example, a Mzungu girlfriend, what will happen if it's breakfast? This lady, for example, can wake up very early in the morning, cook her breakfast alone, do her worship, everything. The man also, in this case here, goes and does that exactly, and you'll never hear the man complaining, right? You'll never hear the man complaining at all. So in that case here, then their marriage automatically becomes what here? A merger. It's a merger of what here? Equals. It's a merger of equals. We shall overcome. This is Africa. Great. Thank you very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, listen to me very well. When it comes to mergers, what are we supposed to know? Look at November 2019 question number 5. Are we there? Look at November 2019 question number 5, and I would want us to start with B. November 2019 question number 5B. Do we have the question? Thank you so much. So always start reading AFM questions professionally. You start by reading the requirement. Like number 1, they want us to give them the maximum exchange ratio that A Limited should agree to, assuming that does not expect dilution in its post-acquisition earnings per share. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, there is something that you're supposed to understand here. It's called EPS, right? Earnings per what year? Earnings per share. It's called earnings per share. Now, ladies and gentlemen, how do we get earnings per share? Is there somebody who can remind us the formula from your initial studies? Is there somebody who can remind us the formula of getting earnings per share? Earnings per share. Is there somebody who can remind us the formula of getting earnings per share? Earnings per share equals who? Earnings per share equals who? I'm looking for those good students that I should be able to give some M-Pesa tonight. Some M-Pesa tonight. Some M-Pesa tonight. Earnings per share equals who? Even from the word earnings per share. Earnings per share. Earnings per share. Earnings per share. Is there somebody who can remind us? Is there somebody who can remind us? Is there somebody who can remind us the name? Is there somebody who can remind us the formula? I mean, all of them are saying, no, it's very easy to get this earnings per share. We normally take total earnings of a company, total earnings of a company, and then we divide this by what we call the famous nose. We divide this by the famous nose. We divide this by the famous nose, where nose stands for a number of ordinary shares. Number of ordinary shares. Number of ordinary shares. So we take the total earnings, and of course, these total earnings must be the earnings attributable to ordinary shareholders. But for now, just take them as total earnings divided by number of ordinary shares. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who will be lucky to take this kind of a position in these big organizations in the next 5 years, of course, I know you guys are destined for greatness. The moment you take this kind of a position, amongst the things you'll be required here to guard jealously, so seriously, is the earnings per share of your company. In Europe, outside there, if the EPS of your company goes down by more than 15% in a year, assuming, for example, this is 2021, and then we have 2022, assuming that the EPS of your company was 20, and for example, the EPS of your company in 2022 goes down to 10, which is about 50% reduction in EPS. This is EPS. In Europe, ladies and gentlemen, if this kind of a thing happens in Europe, automatically you resign or you will be fired as a CEO. Just 15% reduction in EPS. You'll be going home. But of course, you know, you and I are quite private to this very important secret here in Kenya, in Africa, basically, where somebody would rather die than do what here is resign. So EPS is something, ladies and gentlemen, that will really be safeguarded kabisa kabisa. And some of the reasons that will make this EPS here to reduce, some of the reasons that will make this EPS to reduce, ladies and gentlemen, are these acquisitions. Reasons. When you're acquiring a farm, if you acquire a farm that is loss-making, automatically your earnings will do what? Will go down. So you must be very careful to ensure that you do not dilute your earnings per share because of what here? Acquisitions. And one of the ways of ensuring that your earnings per share will not be diluted is to work with what we call the maximum exchange ratio. So please write for me there, maximum exchange ratio. Right there, maximum exchange ratio. This is also known as, the non-diluting. It's also known as the non-diluting exchange ratio. The non-diluting or non-dilutive exchange ratio. It's also known as the non-diluting exchange ratio. That exchange ratio that will guarantee you that your EPS will be at the very least guaranteed to remain where it was, at the very least. that your EPS is not going to reduce. It can never go. If, for example, ladies and gentlemen, here, EPS, if the EPS, for example, in 2021, 2022, if the EPS here was 20, even after, ladies and gentlemen, we acquire this new company, the very worst that will happen is to have the 2022 EPS also being what here? 20. Meaning that our EPS has not been diluted. It can go up. We are not concerned with that. What we are concerned with is the reduction. We don't want our EPS to reduce. We don't want our EPS to reduce. So that it means that during negotiations, especially when we are talking of shareholding, exchange of shares, we must really be quite aware of this. So to get maximum exchange ratio, which is also known as a non-diluting exchange ratio, we have got a special formula that I would want to sell to you here today. And this special formula moves like this. It is EPS of the targeted company. You take EPS of the targeted company, you divide this by the EPS of the predator. You divide this by the EPS of the predator. You take the EPS of the target company, divided by the EPS of the predator company, divided by the EPS of the predator company, Don't worry about these companies. I'll be able to explain them to you. But please remember EPS for your notes. This EPS stands for what in full? It is earnings per who? Earnings per share. It is earnings per share. Earnings per share of the targeted company, all over earnings per share of the predator company. Ladies and gentlemen, we have here husbandee, assuming these are companies. Husbandee, we have here wife. So between the two, who will be the target if these are companies? If this husband company, wife company. So between the two, who automatically becomes the target company? Husband becomes the target. Then that will be a crazy wife. That cannot happen. Does it happen? You know, we are quite of different ages. Perhaps this is happening at your age. I don't know. The wife becomes, in this case here, the target. She's the one, in this case, who will be pursued. Right? She's the one, actually, who will be brought in to my home and will take my name. So wife becomes the target. Now, that one was quite a technical one. How about this? Rat, and a cat. Please listen to my question. Rat and a cat. Between these two animals, which one is the predator? Which one is the predator? The predator now. The predator. The one that is eating the other. It is a cat. The cat. So when we talk of predator, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk of predator is the acquirer. Predator is the acquirer, the acquiring company. The acquiring company is the predator. Predator is the acquiring company. Predator is the acquiring company. Predator is the acquiring company. And then, of course, the acquiree becomes the target company. Let's read this question together. Let's read now this question together. It is November 2019. Question number 5. We are told A and B Limited are operating in the same line of business. In the past few years, A Limited has experienced stiff competition from B Limited to an extent that A Limited is now contemplating acquiring B Limited. So A is contemplating acquiring B Limited. So between those two companies, which one will you call the predator company? Which one will you call the predator company? Abracadabra. Which one will you call the predator company? Which one will you call the predator company? Abracadabra, let's talk. It is the acquirer. The one that is acquiring the other automatically becomes the so A. So A is the predator. A is my predator. And then in this context, B, the one that is being acquired will be called the target company. So then what I would want to know as I start on this acquisition business, I would want to really appreciate the EPS of each company. Ladies and gentlemen, myself, I've engaged in quite a lot of mergers and acquisitions engagement, even practically. And I know I'll never go to any acquisitions, any mergers, discussions table if I do not know the EPS of the companies involved. I would want to know the EPS because that really forms the base of any negotiations. So is there somebody who is able to see the EPS? Is there somebody who is able to see the EPS? Is there somebody who is able to see the EPS of these two companies? The EPS of A, Predator. EPS of A, Predator. Is there somebody who is able to see from the table given there? I can see annual sales. I can see net income. I can see ordinary shares outstanding. And I can see earnings per share. So somebody is telling me, David Kashero is telling me, Mwalimu, you know what? A, which is the Predator company, has an EPS of 4. A has an EPS of 4. How about in this case, ladies and gentlemen, how about B? B, EPS of B is how much? EPS of B is how much? EPS of B is 3. And then, ladies and gentlemen, if there is anything that I would want to really sell to you here tonight, is the formula of getting the maximum exchange ratio. The formula of getting the maximum exchange ratio. Is there somebody in this case who can remind us? I know maximum exchange ratio is an EPS function. I know it's an EPS function. I know it's an EPS function, and this is how I cram it. It is EPS of the target company, EPS of the target company over EPS of the predator, over EPS of the predator. EPS of the target company over EPS of the, now that I have got the two metrics, mine will be simply to come and substitute them here. So it will be 3 divided by what here, somebody? 3 divided by 4. 3 divided by 4. So the maximum exchange ratio will be 3 over 4. 3 over 4. And for maximum exchange ratio, we don't write this in decimals. We leave it this way. Because basically this is communicating quite a lot, as you shall see. It's communicating quite a lot, as you shall be seeing. It's telling us number of shares, in this case, to be issued by the predator, number of shares to be issued by. So normally we prefer leaving exchange ratio, maximum exchange ratio values in form of fractions like this. So once you get this, you double underline this as your final answer. You double underline this as your final answer. And then, ladies and gentlemen, if you allow Mwalimu, we shall go straight away. We shall go straight away to number 2. To number 2 of this question, which is quite a very interesting question. Number 2. So can I go to number 2, Roman 2? Some of these things will make sense with the number of questions that we do here in class, the number of videos you watch, they'll make sense. For now, they may not really make a lot of sense, but the most important thing is to get it at a high level. Get this at a high level. Now we move straight away to the next thing. It's called the total premium that the shareholders of B Limited would agree to receive at the exchange ratio in B1 above. Great. So, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think in this case here are we going to do now here? What do you think are we going to do now here? When they talk of premium, the shareholders of B will get. What shall we do? It's very easy. The first thing that we need to do here is to come and calculate what we call the non-diluting offer price. So step number 1. So they want us to give them the premium. And how do we give them the premium? Step 1, you determine what we call the non-diluting offer price. Non-diluting offer price. And then, ladies and gentlemen, number 2, look for the MPS of the targeted company. And then lastly, you'll be able to evaluate. You'll be able to get to evaluate the premium by taking the non-diluting offer price, then DOP, non-diluting offer price minus the MPS of the targeted company, MPS of the targeted company. November 2019, question number 5. Question number 5. Great. So anytime they ask anything to do with the premium in these questions, I'll always be forced to remember these 3 things. I'll have to calculate the famous DOP, look for the MPS of the targeted company, like MPS of the targeted company. I can even see it there right straight away. Is there anybody who is able to see the MPS of the targeted company? Is there anybody who is able to see the MPS of the targeted company? Somebody. MPS is market price per share. MPS is market price per share. Is there anybody who can see the market price per share? Is there anybody who can see the market price per share? It's supposed to be 60 and 30, yeah? Yeah, it's supposed to be 60 and 30. So for the targeted company, MPS of the targeted company is 30. 30. I don't want the MPS of the predator company for now. It's MPS of the targeted company that I want. It's 30 there. Listen, so I would want to start with the first step, which is the famous, and I really love this. The non-diluting what here? Offer price. How do we get this non-diluting offer price? There's got quite some formulas that you must master. So to get this non-diluting offer price, we normally take the PE ratio of the predator. PE ratio of the predator times EPS of the targeted company. Times EPS of the targeted company. Anytime they tell me to give them the DOP, this is how I will be getting the DOP, the non-diluting offer price, which is quite a key component in calculations of the premium. To get DOP, I'll be taking the PE ratio of the predator, times EPS of the targeted company, times EPS of the targeted company. Now, is there anybody who can remind Mwalimu the formula of getting PE ratio? Could you kindly remind Mwalimu the formula of getting PE ratio? Who can just try from your section 3, from intermediate financial management and financial reporting level papers. Great, I can see what Silvanus is telling me. This is quite, it's price over earnings. It's price over earnings. So what Silvanus is telling me is that the PE ratio is the same as the MPS all over EPS. Is the same as, ladies and gentlemen, is the same as MPS over who? Over EPS. I love this. So in short, these people are telling me that Mwalimu DOP can be rewritten. They are telling me that Mwalimu DOP can be rewritten. That DOP, instead of saying it's PE ratio of predator, simply come and tell us it's MPS of predator. It is MPS of predator all over who? All over EPS of predator. All over EPS of predator. All over EPS of predator. Because you know it's PE ratio of the predator. It is PE ratio of the predator. So it's MPS of predator, it's EPS of predator. Times EPS on the other side, times EPS of the target company, EPS of the target company. So could you kindly then, I know you guys have got these figures, please go ahead and plug them in. Plug the figures in, plug the figures in. I know somebody can see the MPS of the predator. I know we know that predator is company A. It's company A. So MPS of the predator, is there somebody who is able to see the MPS of the predator? MPS of the predator, market price per share of company A. They are not talking to me. They are not talking to me. They are not talking to me. It is 60, Bob. Thank you so much. How about EPS of the predator? How about earnings per share of the predator? How about earnings per share of the predator? Earnings per share of company A, Silvanus is telling me it is 4 times, ladies and gentlemen, on the other side of the coin, times EPS of the targeted company. EPS of the targeted company, EPS of the targeted company is 3. So then these at the end of the day will give us a what figure? Somebody please try giving us our DOP, our famous DOP. If you multiply, our famous DOP is 45. 45. Now, ladies and gentlemen, listen. This is what we call the acquisition price. The acquisition price is 45. And the acquirer is willing to give 45 Kenya shillings per share. The acquirer. And if the targeted shareholders, targeted company shareholders are not willing to be acquired, and maybe they're in a financial fix, what they'll do, they look the other way. You know, they have got 2 options. These guys, I really don't envy their position. These are the target company B shareholders, company B shareholders. So company B shareholders, they are in a financial fix. So when they look at this side, they are going to be acquired. And if they are going to be acquired, they shall receive 45. If they look on the other side, there is a market. And the market, of course, they'll be able to fetch the market price per share. What is the market price per share of the company B? Of company B? What is the market price per share of company B? What is the market price per share of company B? Market price per share of company B. Is there somebody who is able to see this? 30. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when you look this way, you can see a whole 45 coming to you. When you look at the market way, you can see 30. So if you're a shareholder here, which arrangement would you prefer? Because at the end of the day, you must sell shares. You're in a financial fix. You're 45. I'm better off being acquired. I'm better off being acquired. And this is what we do, ladies and gentlemen, really, to get the premium. We'll take the acquisition price, which is the DOP, which is 45, minus the MPS of the targeted company that you guys have told me is 30 bob. Is 30 bob. So 45 minus 30 now will give me what figure that I can see? 45 minus 30 gives me what figure? Somebody as my premium. As my premium. That gives me shillings 15 per share. Shillings 15 per share. Per share. But you see, they want total premium. They want total premium. So for total premium, you'll take this 15 times the nose of the targeted company. Because, you know, it's targeted company really is being acquired in full. So 15 times the number of ordinary shares of the targeted company. 15 times the number of ordinary shares of the targeted company. So is there somebody who can be able to see the number of ordinary shares of the targeted company? Is there somebody who can see the number of shares of the targeted company? Many students are not able to see this really. Number of shares. Number of shares, yes, there are 3 million. There are 3 million. This is how these guys here will be smiling to the bank to receive 45 million as a profit out of this arrangement of what here being acquired. So they are better off. If they don't go for acquisition, they lose this entire 45 million. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you were to really close this class up and say we have come to an end, and then outside there, you meet with your dear wife. The dear wife, of course, she's interested with your right plight. What is troubling you a little bit? You have classes here and there. So this dear wife of yours asks you, you know what, Abdul Salam, what have you been studying tonight? How will your response be? What are the key takeaways that you've been able to pick from here that you can never forget? I know one of them. I'll tell my dear wife here straight away. Today, have been taught how to calculate the maximum exchange ratio. How to calculate the maximum exchange ratio. I know it is EPS of the targeted company all over EPS of, at times you get yourself forgetting. So you must go back and refer to the book. And when you forget, don't in this case become so wild to them. Especially with your kid, unaambia mtoto wewe angalia mambo yako wewe. Wacha na mambo ya wazee. Sasa wewe kusahau umesahau. Itakuwa international what year disaster. So it is EPS of the targeted company all over EPS of the, and then somebody is telling me, Predator of course, somebody is telling me that Mwalimu, I have understood fully the formula of NDOP. I've understood fully the formula of NDOP. I've understood fully the formula of NDOP. How do I get this NDOP? This is something I will never forget. It is something I will never forget. I'll not even remember it from the NDOP. I know, ladies and gentlemen, that NDOP here, automatically, it is a market price per share of Predator, all over, in this case here, EPS of who? EPS of the Predator times EPS, times EPS, times EPS, times EPS, times EPS of the targeted company, Now, let me ask you a question, ladies and gentlemen. If, for example, you're given here 2 over 4 times 8, will this be the same as 2 times 8 over 4? They're not talking to me. They're not talking to me. George says yes. At least one student has been able to confirm, Mwalimu, you know what? I can see that even this 4 can just cancel this. Go into this twice. And 2 times 2 gives me what here? 4. The same. 2 times 2 will give me 4. Now I'm learning something very important here. I'm learning something very important here. Life is all about learning. I'm learning, ladies and gentlemen, that this NDOP can also be taken here as MPS of the Predator, times EPS of the target company all over EPS of the Predator, all over EPS of the Predator. Is there somebody who has seen what I've done? I've simply, in football, I've simply given, in this case here, a little cross pass. It's taken this, the other side. And I've realized by doing so, we shall not break anybody's bone. Is there somebody who can see with some quite clear inside eyes? Inside eyes, is there somebody who is able to see some pattern here? Is there somebody who is able to see something very nice here? Is there somebody who is able to see something very nice there? Is there somebody who is able to see something very nice? There is something that I'm able to see with my inner eyes. This one does not need the outer eyes. Is there somebody who has been able to picture out something here? What are you able to see there? What are we able to see there? Maximum exchange ratio. Thank you very much, Steve. And now, ladies and gentlemen, again, we are bringing out a very important formula that this NDOP can also be obtained by taking the MPS of the Predator, times maximum exchange ratio. Times maximum exchange ratio. Yes. I don't know whether there is anybody. I mean, some people here must have not seen this. I'm so sure there are about 20 people who have not seen this formula. And you can even prove this. Please, could you kindly try, in this case, you're plugging in. Could you kindly give me the MPS of the Predator? Could you kindly give me the MPS of the Predator company here? MPS of the Predator company here. Can somebody remind us from the table given there? Are you able to see the MPS of the Predator company? 60, eh? Thank you so much. 60 times. Is there somebody who can remind us what the maximum exchange ratio was? This maximum exchange ratio, we got it up there. If my memory serves me well, we got the maximum exchange ratio up there. Sharon Kelly is telling me 3 over 4. So 3 over 4. So 60 times 3 over 4 gives me what figure? 60 times 3 over 4 gives me what figure? 60 times 3 over 4 gives me what figure? 60 times 3 over 4 gives me what figure? 45. Is this figure in this case here quite recognizable by yourselves? Is the figure familiar? Have you ever seen this figure anywhere? It is the NDOP that we got earlier on using the other formula. Hooray, I'm realizing that next time, if I can see the market price per share of the predator and I have the maximum exchange ratio, I don't have to be labor so much. This is something very nice. Actually, if I were you, I would have written this nicely. And if possible, please never ever use any other color of a highlighter. Use a yellow highlighter. Yellow highlighters are very nice. Yellow. Always use yellow highlighter. All the other highlighters ni takataka. Yellow highlighter ninafanya ukumbuke vizuri. Hata hizo highlighters sijui ati orange, sijui gani. Wachukua yellow highlighter paka. E formula. Very important. Okay, formula very important. For those of you that I've taught for several years, maybe in other papers, you know, I started liking yellow highlighter even before William Ruto chose yellow color. So don't think that I'm a political. No, I don't do politics at all. I don't like them. Watu ni wakora na mess vijana wetu hapa hizi tapata kazi. Hakuna hata mmoja mzuri. But in terms of highlighting, bringing out key concepts, yellow highlighter. And that is why I normally buy all my students yellow highlighters. That's my obligation as your father, right? So I've given you two formulas of calculating this in DOP, and I want to believe, ladies and gentlemen, that they will be able to stick in your good memories. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I've been able to learn. So I'll ensure that my madam sees dust. Great. Great. And then, of course, I'll not forget to tell them that I also have learned that there is what we call premium. Premium. Well, I'll explain it very well. Premium equals what here? Equals the DOP that you have calculated minus the MPS of the targeted company. Never confuse that. Minus the MPS of the targeted company. From there, ladies and gentlemen, please allow ourselves to go to number 3. Not unless there is a question, I'll go to number 3. Number 3, they want me to give them A Limited's post-acquisition EPS, assuming that the two companies agree on an offer price of shillings 30. Shillings 30. Shillings 30. Offer price of shillings 30. Offer price of shillings 30. Great. So they want me to give them post-acquisition EPS. I love this. Post-acquisition. Post-acquisition EPS. Post-acquisition EPS. Very easy. Especially if you remember the formula of EPS. We started by saying that EPS equals total earnings all over the nose. Number of ordinary shares of a company. Now, post-acquisition means what? If, for example, ladies and gentlemen, we are in a very good working marriage relationship. When I marry my madam, I expect us to run a joint account. And this is how I expect post-acquisition. I expect the earnings of the husband plus the earnings of the wife. They have to be put together to get total earnings for the family. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we shall come down here and now divide this by the noses. So nose of company 1 plus nose of company 2. And the company 2, remember, it will be now non-existent. It has to be multiplied with what we call the exchange ratio. So post-acquisition EPS, once we acquire this company, the total earnings now will be earnings of company 1 plus earnings of company 2. All over the total number of ordinary shares. In terms of total number of ordinary shares, I've always seen students here messing up. And they normally mess by leaving out this ER. They normally mess by leaving out the ER, the exchange ratio. The exchange ratio. Remember, company 2 now will no longer be in existence. We have bought its shares. So company 2, we must always multiply it with the exchange ratio. So please write this in full. This earnings 1. This basically is the total earnings. Total earnings. So earnings 1, earnings or earnings J. This stands for total earnings. You'll get some books here calling it profit after tax. You'll get some questions calling it net income. Net income. Net income. Net income. Now, ladies and gentlemen, listen and listen to me very well. Now we have everything really. Ours is now to come here and do the plug-in of metrics. So we have here the post-acquisition. We have here the post-acquisition EPS. Are you able to see the total earnings? Are you able to see the net income of company 1? Net income of company 1. Is there somebody from that table? Company 1 is the predator always. Net income of company 1. They're giving me a figure of 40. Now that they have become 1, then we add earnings of company 2. Earnings of company. Are you able to see the earnings of company 2? 9. Thank you so much. How about number of ordinary shares? How about number of ordinary shares? Number of ordinary shares of company 1. Number of ordinary shares of company 1. Number of ordinary shares of company 1. Number of ordinary shares outstanding. I can see 10 plus number of ordinary shares outstanding of company 2. There are 3. But now remember that here they want us to come and multiply this with the exchange ratio. They want us to come and multiply this with the exchange ratio. They want us to come and multiply this with exchange ratio. They want us to come and multiply this with exchange ratio. Now, this is where, you know, ladies and gentlemen, when you are a good examiner, and forgive me for using this bad example. Forgive me for using this bad example. A good examiner, even CASNEB itself, will always tell you that, you know what, you must ensure that some students don't pass. You must ensure that some students don't pass. There is no way any good examiner will ever allow 100% of the students to pass. Not possible. That is not possible. That's not possible. That's not possible. We should allow, if it's financial, advanced financial management, not more than 1,800 in the entire country. Advanced financial management is the base paper. Is the base paper that really should be, it's AFR and AFM. We can never allow more than 1,800. 1,800 is the maximum. Is that fair or unfair? Yeah, I agree, and I can see most of you are crying really. But would you want a situation where everybody passes an exam? Would you want a situation where everybody passes an exam? Waste of resources, I agree. The key says yes. So long as they qualify, they need to pass all of them. We shall discuss about that. We shall discuss about that. We shall discuss about that. But trust you me, if you passed, pewa, kwani iko namna gani? Umepita. Now, generally, I would want you to listen and listen to me very well. We have got what we call maximum exchange ratio. Maximum exchange ratio. And then now we have exchange ratio. We have exchange ratio, which is the normal exchange ratio, the normal exchange ratio. Now, this maximum exchange ratio is the one that we have called what, or rather is the one that has a relationship with NDOP. It is the one that we took the EPS of the target divided by EPS of the predator. For the normal exchange ratio, listen and listen to me very well. This normal exchange ratio, to get it, we normally take the offer price, divide this by the MPS of the predator, company. Anytime they want us to give them an exchange ratio, the normal exchange ratio, we shall always be taking the offer price. Okay, we shall always be taking the offer price divided by the MPS of the predator. Like this examiner knows for sure that when we talk of exchange ratio, he knows that so many students will work with the 3/4 that they got up there, forgetting that 3/4 is not your normal exchange ratio. The 3/4 that we got there is maximum exchange ratio. Listen, whenever you are given an offer price, you must always calculate exchange ratio afresh. Whenever you are given an offer price, you must always calculate the exchange ratio afresh. Like in this question, they have told us, assuming that the two companies agree on an offer price of shillings what here? 30. So an offer price has been given. And what are we saying? We are saying that whenever an offer price is given, always calculate exchange ratio afresh. So it will be 30 divided by the MPS of the predator. Who can remind us the MPS of the predator? What was the MPS of the predator? What was the MPS of the predator? Students in this case are not really making reference. Now students are tired. They're telling me it is 60. So 30/60, that gives me a half. 30/60 gives me a half. I'll still come back to this, but please listen and listen to me very well. Actually, if I were you, I would have written this statement in my mother tongue. I would have said straight away in my mother tongue that whenever offer price is given, exchange ratio must be computed afresh. Whenever I see offer price, I must always compute exchange ratio afresh. So times a half year, So please ensure that you are moving slowly here. Go to the numerator. Numerator will be 40 plus 9, giving me 49. That is the total earnings from the two companies. How about this denominator? How about the denominator? What answer should I write here? Great, thanks, Steve. Thank you, Steve. I've seen your question. Thank you very much. So could you kindly use your body mass very well? To give me an answer here. So many students will tell you 6.5. When you ask them, how do you get 6.5? Mwalimu, that is easy. We took 10 plus 3, which is 13. And then we multiplied 13 with a half. That's how we got this. They forgot to make use of their body mass. Body mass tells us, first of all, to multiply. When you have plus and multiplication, first multiply. So 3 times a half, that gives me 1.5. So 1.5 plus 10, that gives me 11.5. So then could you kindly give us this 49 divided by 11.5 gives me what figure as the post-acquisition EPS? As the post-acquisition EPS, Livonus tells us it's 4.26. Thank you so much. It's 4.26. Thank you so much. It's 4.26. Thank you so much. 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 4.26. Now, before I answer Stephen's question, I would want us to come back here. This is very interesting. I love this topic so much because this is a topic that I can use to pin even very good AFM students down. I can pin even the greatest of them all in terms of AFM down. I can pin them down as an examiner. Listen and listen to me very well. You see, I've given you, all right? I'll come in an exam. I'll go ahead and tell you that the non-diluting offer price of the company, is 45. Right? And then I'll go ahead and give you the MPS of the predator of a company. MPS of the predator of a company are 60. And then out of this information, I'll come and ask you to give us the maximum exchange ratio. The maximum exchange ratio. Not so many students will be able to get this correctly. Not so many students will be able to get this correctly. Trust you me. Not so many students. Very few. Because you see, here now what they'll do, most of them will start giving you, right, so many formulas. And then they realize, like, now this maximum exchange ratio is EPS of the target divided by, and then they'll now call you after exam. They tell you, well, you know what? The EPS was not given at all. Ladies and gentlemen, here they have given you an offer price, which is what? This is an offer price, which is non-dilutive. So what I need to do is simply to come and remember this, because they want maximum exchange ratio, which is the same as non-diluting exchange ratio. So I need an offer price, which is non-dilutive, which is 45. Out of what here, somebody? Out of 60. And if you do this very well, 15 goes here thrice. 15 goes here how many times? 4 times. It'll end up giving us 3 over what here? 3 over 4. These are things you shall get used to as we get along. Because I'll be giving you the tricks of the examiner as we get along. And that is why I don't want any student to come to my class without having watched what here? The videos. Without having watched the videos. Thank you very much. And now that brings me to Stephen's question. Stephen had asked us a very good question. What if, for example, if you allow me, Stephen has asked a very good question. That's a brilliant question. That's a brilliant question. That's a brilliant question. Stephen has asked us, what if in this case here I go and then I realize somebody wants me to get post-acquisition EPS. I've written my formula very well. It's earnings 1 plus earnings 2 all over number of ordinary shares company 1, number of ordinary shares company 2 times exchange ratio. And then now here I am, all smiles in an exam. You know, in an exam, ladies and gentlemen, you always get, I don't know what happens. You know, in an exam, right? But when the question is flowing very well, this will be you, right? Smiling like that. But all of a sudden, so you get students in this case changing their mouths quite, shapes of their mouths quite often, man like that, man, right? So here you have been smiling throughout, and then you reach, in this case here, to the exchange ratio. You remember that Mwalimu taught us that to get this exchange ratio, we shall take the offer price all over MPS of the predator, And then now you wear your Googles, trying to look for the offer price in the question. And then you realize the offer price has not been given in the question 100%. No offer price. What shall you do in that case? Shall you cry? What shall you do in that case? Shall you cry? What shall you do? What shall you do in that case? What shall you do in that case? What shall you do in that case? What shall you do? MPS will be the same as the offer price. People are now making good guesses there. People are making good guesses. Use maximum exchange ratio. Thank you very much. Use the maximum exchange ratio. Use the maximum exchange ratio that you got up there. I told you that you shall always endeavor to calculate a new exchange ratio whenever we are given an offer price. If the offer price is not given, always use the maximum exchange ratio you got up there, or calculate it if you don't have it. Use the EPS of the targeted company, all over the EPS of what is somebody the predator. EPS of the targeted company, all over EPS of the predator. So is that okay? Can I move on to something different? Can I move on to something different? Great, great. The last one, ladies and gentlemen, the last one, they want us to do something very easy. They want us to do something very easy. The last one, ladies and gentlemen, they want us to do something extremely easy. It should not even be given to us at this level. A Limited's post-acquisition earnings per share, assuming that for every 100 ordinary shares of B Limited, the shareholders are offered 12% debentures of shillings 500 per value. Great. They have mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, they have mentioned post-acquisition EPS. I'll remember straight away the marriage scenario. It's post-acquisition. It's post-acquisition. It's post-acquisition. Post-acquisition EPS, I'll take earnings of company 1 plus earnings of company 2. All over nose of company 1 plus nose of company 2 times exchange ratio. This is the first thing that I will think about. It is November 2019. Question number 5. It's November 2019, question number 5. But ladies and gentlemen, this is basically a leveraged, it is a leveraged financing acquisition, i.e. acquisition through debt. Acquisition through who? Acquisition through debt. Acquisition through debt. Acquisition through debt. Leveraged. Leveraged acquisition. No worry. I would want to get the total debt. Total debt given out. That's the first thing. Total debt given out. Is there somebody who can compute the total debt given out for us? The total debt that was given out for us, that I'll be able to calculate very easily. That I will be able to calculate very easily. That I'll be able to calculate very easily. That I will be able to calculate very easily. It's 1,000 shillings debt. 1,000 shillings debt equals 100 shares. Is there anybody who is able to see where I'm getting these 1,000 from? Is there anybody who can see where I'm getting the 1,000 from? Is there anybody who can see where I'm getting the 1,000 from? Anybody who is able to see where I'm getting the 1,000 from? They are not talking to me. 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 Who do they want to talk to if they don't want to talk to me? Who do they want to talk to if they don't want to talk to me? Bila anasema no. Sharon anasema yes, I've seen. Thank you very much, Bila, for coming out boldly. Boldly. And you know that is what life wants. Life, in this case here, favors who? The bold. Actually speaking, if I'm given between two things, boldness and intelligence, if someone tells me to choose between the two, only one, boldness and intelligence, which one do you think is better? Boldness. I've always seen people who are very intelligent, but they're not able to ask for favors. They can't even ask for jobs. The ego is too big. And yet a bold man, you simply need to go, even if it's in your church, stand up and tell people, you know what, even if you have not cleared your CPA, I'm the best tax consultant in the world. You start speaking like that straight away. If you're bold, you'll never know poverty. Boldness. So what have they told us in this question? What they've told us in this question, ladies and gentlemen, is that we are being offered 2 debentures, and each debenture has a par value of 500. 2 debentures, and each debenture has a par value of 500. So 2E, 2 debentures, and each debenture has a par value of 500. Each debenture has a par value of 500. Each debenture. So 2 of them, and each is at 500. Bila, I don't know whether you've been able to spot that those 2 debentures. Have you been able to see them? 2 debentures, and each is going for 500. Yes. Yes. So then it's 1,000 shillings debt. Let's read there again very well. What they're telling us there, A Limited's post-acquisition EPS, assuming that for every 100 ordinary shares of B, the shareholders are offered 2 debentures of shillings 500 per value. So for every 100 shares they give us, we give them a loan of 1,000. Then how many shares do they have in total? Could you kindly give me the notes of the targeted company? How many shares do they have in total? 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 They're not talking to me when I want to finish this class in style. Ordinary shares of the second company, 3 million. Thank you very much. So they have 3 million shares. So then in total, we will end up giving them how much in terms of debt? It will be 1,000 times 3 million divided by 100. So the total debt will be equal to what? The total debt will be equal to what? 1,000 times 3 million divided by 100. The total debt will be equal to what? The total debt will be equal to 30 million. 30 million. So first of all, are we together up to here? First of all, are we together up to there? Are we together up to there? Are we together up to there? The total debt given, are we together? Somebody talk to me. Please, for your notes, it's important that you come and say, for example, this is notes for company 2. Notes for company 2, 30 million. So then what is of interest to me here is the total interest. Please give me the total interest now. Please give me the total interest. Go ahead and give me the total interest. Please go ahead and give me the total interest. Go ahead and give me the total interest. It will be 30 million times 12%. Remember the interest rate given there is 12%. The total interest rate given there is 12%. 30 million times 12%. So that gives us 3.6 million. Thank you and thank you so much. Thank you and thank you so much. Thank you and thank you so much. And then I would want you to listen and listen to me very carefully here. Look at what I'm going to do. Look at what I'm going to do. I'm going to calculate here the post-acquisition EPS when we use debt. When using debt, it will be earnings of company 1 plus earnings of company 2. But now remember, the interest will be swallowing some of our earnings. The interest will be swallowing some of our earnings. The interest will be swallowing some of our earnings. The interest will be swallowing some of our earnings. So then after that, come here and divide this by nose 1 plus nose 2 times exchange ratio, which is always 0. Which is always 0. Nose 1 times nose 2 times exchange ratio, which is always 0. When you're using a debt, the exchange ratio will always be 0. When using debt, the exchange ratio will be 0. Listen and listen to me very carefully. We've said that for us to be able to get exchange ratio, there must be some offer price divided by MPS of predator. And remember that this is offer price of ordinary shares. Offer price of ordinary shares. Offer price of ordinary shares. When we are giving out debt, we are not going to buy ordinary shares of this company. We are offering 0 for their ordinary shares. The very best thing will not even for me to think about this. Some of these things in finance are learned better through cramming. If I were you, I would have straight away taken these as a chorus. Vile mmesikia ile chorus ya ati freshi, baridi hata sijui inamaanisha nini, lakini nasikia inaimbwa all over. Unajua kama ni debt that has been used in mergers and acquisitions, the exchange ratio is always zero. If it is debt that has been used, the exchange ratio is always what here? Is always zero. The exchange ratio is always zero. Great, great. So, ladies and gentlemen, could you kindly assist me here? We go slow now. Let's go slow here. Let's go a little bit slowly here. Let's go a little bit slowly here. So, are you able to see earnings of company one? Are you able to see earnings of company one? Is there somebody who can give us earnings of company one? They must have forgotten these figures. Earnings, these are the net incomes. The profit after tax. So earnings of company one, what do we have here? 40. Plus earnings of company two, what do we have here? Earnings of company two. Earnings of company two. Is there somebody who is able to remember the 9? The figures are in the millions. Interest is 3.6 million in total. Times into brackets here, 1 minus tax. Has the examiner given us the tax rate in this question? Has the examiner given us the tax rate in this question? Are we given the tax rate in the question? Have we given that? Let us not assume. If it's yes, 30%, they're saying it's 30%. They're saying it's 30%. Remember in finance, if it's not given, then automatically we take it as a 0. How about number of ordinary shares of company one? Number of ordinary shares of company one, is there somebody who can remember 10? Number of ordinary shares of company one, is there somebody who is able to remember the 10? They're not talking to me, you know. They're not talking to me. They're not talking to me. Yes. How about number of ordinary shares of company two? Number of ordinary shares of company two. 3. Times what is the exchange ratio given that, ladies and gentlemen, here we have debt. What exchange ratio should I use given that 0? You don't even have to master really so much. The exchange ratio there is 0. So could you kindly go slowly and give me an answer? Please go slowly there and give me an answer. Get the numerator first. I know that the denominator will be 10. Get the numerator first. I know that the denominator will be 10. And I can see my class is really reducing from 40 something up to 32, up to 32. So the final answer is 4.648. The final answer is 4.648, like that. 4.648, like that. Great. Thank you so much. And now that marks the end of that question for part B. So I would want you to do me a favor. Today we'll end up a little bit mapema, but with one